done.
For those who want more out of every moment this summer, Mazda has more 2025 IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than any other brand as of May 2025. What more could you ask for? Discover how Mazda has more to move you today. Visit iihs.org to learn more.
Every Mazda SUV offers you an elevated driving experience and refined performance. Discover it at Gerald Jones Mazda.
Hello guys, welcome to After Midnight, and I have a special guest at this time. She's my friend, and she's from, well, I'm just going to leave that part out, but she's my friend, and she is Sheena. Welcome to the podcast, Sheena. How are you doing?
Hi Frank, thank you so much for having me. I'm doing well, and I'm happy to be here. It's my first time recording a podcast, so I'm excited about that, and thank you for having me.
Alrighty, so what is your favorite Nickelodeon show? Why?
Yeah, so I'll start out by saying, as an adult now in my 30s, I still think very fondly of my childhood and of my childhood shows. Both Nickelodeon and Disney were really fundamental in my childhood, and definitely grew up on so many of those shows. Still watch reruns till this day sometimes when I want to get back into that mode, right, of nostalgia. But if I had to pick one, and I love so many of the shows, but if I had to pick one favorite Nickelodeon show, I'd have to travel probably back in time to the 90s, and I would go very classic with Kenan and Kel. Very classic comedy, 90s comedy. I think that show was really the epitome of Nickelodeon during the 90s. You can't really remake a show like that today because so many of the plots just wouldn't work in our climate, or the technology has changed. And so it's kind of, fun to go back in time and rewatch those, those shows from the 90s. And what I liked about Kenan and Kel is just their chemistry. They were a very dynamic duo. They got in all kinds of trouble, but always got out of it. The comedy behind it was really genius. They had really great on-camera chemistry, and they're still successful till this day for a reason. I think that was a good place for them to get their start. So, if I had to pick one favorite show, that would be it.
Great. Who is your favorite Nickelodeon character and why?
Ooh, that one, and again, so many choices. For that one, I'd have to think a little bit more current, and I'm going to go with, from the show, Victorious, actually, which is more 2000s, mid-2000s. I really liked Victoria Justice's character on the show, Tori Vega, and mostly that's because she was the main character. Could relate to her character. She's somebody who really enjoys singing, enjoys music. It's one of her passions, and so I really liked that character. But I kind of relate to her hobbies and her passion.
Who is your least favorite character with Nickelodeon?
Yeah, and again, that's a tough one because there are so many good characters on Nickelodeon. Oh gosh, if I had to pick a least favorite character, and this, and the actor portrayed her really, really well, but she did a great job at portraying an obnoxious character, I have to say. On the same show, Victorious, I'd have to go with Trina Vega, who was Tori Vega's sister. In the show, she was supposed to be very self-centered, very egotistical, thought she was better than she actually was. And she was one of those obnoxious characters who you love to hate, you could say. But she did a good job. She had a soft, fun side to her, and she could be really sweet when she wanted to, but she could be a little bit obnoxious and self-absorbed at times. So she was the character I'd probably have to say that I least liked.
Okay. So why?
Say that again. Why?
Why do you not like her?
Oh, so as I mentioned, I'll repeat that again. But to kind of paraphrase, like I said before, she portrayed a very obnoxious, self-centered, right, type of person who was, Tori's sister. She was the polar opposite of Tori Vega, right? Trina Vega, that is. And she, portrayed someone who was just very much into herself, very out for herself. There was one episode where Tori gave her an amazing gift of the song, and then she turned around and sold the copyrights to the song, because she wanted the cash instead, right? So she had that like corrupt side to her. She had a sweet side as well, right? But I think she's the character I liked the least, just because she had that ego, right? And sometimes was just always looking out for herself rather than, the others around her.
Okay, we're gonna take a commercial break. When we come right back, we'll have more. Okay, we're going back to After Midnight with Sheena here. And why do you think Amanda Bynes went through a mental breakdown?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? And starting off to just say here, I'm a huge Amanda Bynes fan, right? I mean, she was acting from a very young age in the 90s. The Amanda Show, which was in 1999, I believe, aired. I've been watching her since that time, and then she went on to, perform in so many movies. And it's definitely really hard to see that she's experienced, so many mental health challenges in the last, decade or so, I would say. My guess as to answer your question as to why this would have happened.
Disconnected. Connected.
Why this would have happened, just speaking from a psychological perspective, right? There is so much pressure put on a young age with child stars, right? A lot of them are supporting their families from a young age. Some of them are just sole breadwinners in their family, or they bring in the most income in their family, or you don't always get to grow up with a normal childhood, right? They're growing up in the spotlight, being scrutinized, being judged for every single move they make. And for a 9-10-year-old, that's or whatever age child is, that's a lot. That's a lot. Even adults sometimes can't handle that pressure, as we've seen. So, I think the reason, or part of the reason for the mental breakdown, is just not having a normal childhood in a way, right? Not having that privacy, and kind of being a little more, you could say, robotic in a way, the word I like to use, right? Being told what to do, told how to act, told what to say, and eventually that can lead someone to do the unthinkable, right, or to get frustrated, and also I guess kind of lose their identity, right, their sense of self, and not understand who they really are, because they've spent most of their lives playing roles, right, that are not them. So I think we see so many child stars who get into this situation, but I think with Amanda, it was just that. It was just being in the industry at such a young age, not having.
These are my minions. I don't know their names. I don't want to.
Not having that ability to be herself maybe at times. And just kind of, one day it exploded, right? It just exploded in her face, and she, needed to find a way out, and it just led to all kinds of mental health challenges. I think, what I've recently heard now is that she has kind of retired from acting, and, she's working in the beauty industry, and I'm really, really happy for her. I think that, maybe the spotlight just wasn't the best place for her to be, and to see that she kind of wants to lead a more private self. I think that's what she really needed all along.
They will have a reboot of Drake and Josh. Why or why not?
Yeah, Drake and Josh was actually one of my favorite shows growing up. It came out when I was in high school. I want to say 2004, 2005, I remember. I would love to see a reboot personally. I have kind of heard those two stars, though, Josh Peck and Drake Bell are not, quite on speaking terms as much. They've kind of, haven't had necessarily a fight, but I think they've just kind of drifted apart like many, people do. I think, they were kind of branded together for so long during that show, and then kind of, wanted to find their own separate spot in Hollywood, go their own separate ways and, navigate their own careers. So from what I've recently heard, things like that, I heard Josh didn't really quite invite Drake to his wedding and things like that. And I know Drake has moved to Mexico now to pursue a singing career. So, their careers have taken them on such different paths that I don't think we will see a reboot anytime soon. I would love to personally. I think it would be great to if I was making that reboot, it would be really great to see them, into adulthood, having families of their own and, kind of pick it up from there. I'd love to see, Miranda Cosgrove, comprise her role as Megan Parker again and still have that mischievous side to her. I think that would be great. It would be really great to see. But I think because the stars have all kind of gone their separate ways, and haven't really connected lately, we may not see that anytime soon.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a commercial break. We'll be right back and we'll have more sheep. Come back to FJ After Midnight, guys, here with Sheena. So why do you think it took Nickelodeon so long to get rid of Dan Snyder?
Yeah, Frank, that's a great question. And, I know that you've probably seen the Quiet on Set documentary that recently came out in mid-March. And so many people have, seen that. There was so much revealed in that documentary. And, I think, in my personal opinion and from what I've seen, from what I've heard in that documentary, I think networks want to all networks, real TV networks, especially ones that work with children, they want to believe, right, that they've hired the best possible people, right? People, the people behind the scenes don't necessarily believe that they've hired somebody who could do something so unbelievable, right, to their stars and to their cast members. So it's often really hard, I think, to see the signs in the people that you trust, the people that you hire to do a job. So we often don't see that at first because we don't want to think that way. We want to believe the best in people. But I think to answer your question more directly, I think it took so long because it was unbelievable that something like that could happen on such a prominent network, right? But I also think too, if we think about this, right, Dan Schneider created so many great shows, and he's been either the co-producer, the executive producer, or the creator behind so many of these great shows we grew up on, and those shows bring in millions of dollars, right? And it's they say money is power, right? If you're an executive who's bringing in that much money, right, and your shows are successful, right, often networks sometimes want to protect what they have. They want to protect people. They want to make sure that really before they start throwing out those allegations out there, right? They want to believe, is that really happening to our stars? Is that really what's going on? There's two sides to every story. So I think it just took them a while to, see that dark side and to kind of push the greedy side as well as a network and be like, wow, we really have to protect and advocate for our child stars and make sure that they're working in a safe environment. And I'm glad to see that the Quiet on Set documentary has now shed light on that. And so many people are speaking out about what happened, which, again, more power to them because, hopefully TV networks can make sure that, this is not happening in the future.
Do you think Nickelodeon will hire him back and why?
I don't. I think I think the last time I read that they had let him go in 2018 itself, when these allegations were just kind of spiraling out of control, and given him, I believe, a severance, a large severance. He created so many great shows, and I think he even had a company. Then later on, Schneider's Bakery was the company that he was operating under as well on Nickelodeon. So many of his shows still air today, and there's great memories from what we saw. But given the negative publicity that's been around Dan Schneider and the allegations of a hostile workplace and things of that nature, I don't think it would be the right move for Nickelodeon to bring him back. I mean, everybody can change. A person can certainly make improvements, but it is always risky when you bring someone like that back into your corner. And you have to wonder, is the same behavior going to continue, right? So, while I think that, giving him a second chance is up to the network, of course, but I would think that, because there's just been so much negative publicity, allegations, it's more like, is it really water under the bridge, right? Can we let go of what really happened? It might just be better to start with a clean slate. So I don't really see Nickelodeon hiring him back. He's a very talented creator. I think he's done great work for the company, but I don't really see them hiring him back after everything that happened.
Okay. What show did you watch with Dan Snyder?
Oh gosh, so many. Like I said, I have great memories still. It's, and I try not to let the documentary necessarily ruin those memories, because I always say separate the artist from the person, because who he is as a person could be very different than who he is as an artist or as a producer. And he's very talented. He's created some amazing shows. I really liked all that. I really liked the Amanda show. Keaton and Kel, that was really great as well. I did like Drake and Josh, and of course Victorious. So these are all the shows that I watched that were created by him in the 90s. Yeah.
That's good. All right, we're gonna take a commercial break for the right back. Back to After Midnight, guys. Here with Sheena. If you were stuck on a TV show with a person, what would you do?
If I was stuck on a TV show with any person, what would I do, right? I probably just want to learn who they are off screen, right? Because we see these actors on screen, right? We don't get to, or on camera, we don't really get to know too much about their lives and what they like to do and how similar or different they are, right? From their character. We see them as that character or as the characters they play rather than who they are as a person. So I'd probably just want to get to know them a little bit more personally and maybe ask them what inspired them to get into acting, and find out how different or similar they are from the character they play on screen, and find out what they like to do off camera.
That's good. Do you have a favorite Nickelodeon singer and why?
Ooh, back to the I think their late teens and so much talent. And I think the one singer that I have to highlight, who's still, of course, really big today after that show, is Ariana Grande. Right? Ariana Grande played Kat Valentine on the show. I feel like we didn't get to hear her sing as much since Victoria Justice was the star of the show, who's also undoubtedly talented, of course. So the attention was focused a little bit more on her. But the few times or the few episodes where we did hear Ariana Grande sing, obviously she's such a vocal talent, has a great voice. And I think that's where, obviously that's where she got her start. I know she's also performed on Broadway, but, I think she got most of her start from that show and is still a famous singer today, obviously. But I would have to say, if I had to pick one famous singer, even though we didn't see too much of her singing talent on Nickelodeon, just a little bit, we got a sneak peek of it, Ariana Grande would have to be my top singer, my top favorite singer from the network.
All right. Our next topic we're going to go to, and it's our last topic, is Disney. What is your favorite Disney show?
Yeah, so getting into Disney, and like I said in the beginning of our conversation, Disney, Nickelodeon, grew up on both great networks. My favorite Disney show, and there's so many, but I'm going to stick with the classics again, going back to my childhood. I really liked Lizzie McGuire, right? Hilary Duff was the star of that show. It was about, the main character, Lizzie, and her two best friends, Miranda and Gordo. It was so relatable for me growing up as a teenage girl or a preteen, right? The show, and I feel like you don't see too many shows like that today, right? That, navigated adolescence, was very relatable. She had the annoying little brother, right? She had her parents who cared about her. She had, her crush. You had the popular girl who was, always out to get her. Like, all these characters, right? We see them in our real lives too. So what I really liked about this, if I was dealing with something in school, right, or in my life, escape from the reality, turn on the TV, and get to see somebody successfully navigate that. So it was a show that I could relate to, but that also tackled some of these issues successfully and provided solutions for us as kids. So I'd have to say that was my favorite show.
Okay, if you were stuck. And if you switched places with a celebrity, who would it be?
Ooh, if I switched places with a celebrity, good question. I have to say, and if we're sticking with the Disney theme here, because I watched so many of them, right? I really like, and if we're talking about both her on and off camera characters, I really liked Christy Carlson Romano, actually, growing up and still to this day. I think she's very put together is the word I would use. She has had a very successful Disney career. She was on Even Stevens. She was the voice of Kim on Kim Possible. She had a Broadway career where she played Belle from Beauty and the Beast. She has a successful singing and acting career. But I would love to switch places with her because I think she's very talented, very versatile. I love that she's been on Broadway, she's done theater, she's done TV, but I know she also has her own cooking show as well. She's done some home and cooking and lifestyle type videos as well. So she has a very different talent that's not just related to acting and singing, but something more in home economics. So I really like that she's just so versatile, so different, very clean cut, and I think she's just very polished and put together.
How long do you think you would last?
Us in that role. I'd have to say.
Where'd all these parties come from? You bitches get so.
Or yeah, this one, yeah, it is true.
There's no rain.
Thank you. It's a question, right? If I could switch places and take that role, I'd like to say it's hard. It's hard because you're in the public eye, right? There's not going to be any privacy. It's a very different lifestyle, right? And your job is to entertain people. It's not easy. It's really not easy. So I give all actors and entertainers so much credit. If I was switching roles specifically with Christy Cross Romano, right? I'd like to give it 24 hours and then probably see how I feel afterwards. I'd have to take like a little bit of a mental break, right? And just think and stop and be like, it's something I could go on with, right? So I have to say maybe just 24 hours and then like do a reset or kind of a reboot and just think, all right, is this something, reevaluate, is this something that I want going forward, right? And just think about that and reflect upon how it was.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a commercial break. We'll be right back. Hey, just like Sweet Life and Zach and Cody, if you lived in a sweet hotel, what room service food would you order?
Ooh, and I loved that show. The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody was one of my favorite shows on Disney. One of the longest running shows as well. And then they had that spin-off, The Sweet Life on Deck, right, where they went to school on a boat. So definitely a huge fan of that show. If I had to order one room service food, I'm a sugar junkie. I love sweets. So I have to go with creme brulee. I love creme brulee. And it's one of the most expensive desserts on a menu typically, so that's probably why I would order it. But I also love the texture of creme brulee. I like that it's like crunchy on top and then like this sweet pudding inside as well, right? And that was also commonly ordered at the hotel from what I can remember in the show. So I have to go with that.
I was wondering too, did Dan Snyder, he did a little bit of the Sweet Life with Zach and Cody, but did he do On the Deck too, I was wondering?
I don't think so. I remember that I think you're thinking of Danny Callis. So Danny Callis was the creator of Sweet Life, Zach and Cody and Sweet Life on Deck. I don't believe Dan Schneider was associated with Disney.
Okay. Would you have a double life, Hannah Montana?
A double life like Hannah Montana, I have to say no, and my reasoning there is I think I love the show Hannah Montana, fantastic show, and I watched it for the whole time it's on the air, but they make the show look very comedic and easy, right? But then if we think about in real life how that would be for somebody, right? Living a double life would be really tough. Like I do see the point of the show. I think she wanted to be able to have a pop career but still be able to grow up as a normal kid. So that actually kind of makes sense, right, in a way. But then when you look at how much work it is to keep that secret and, take the wig off or the wig on, right, and switch personas, that's quite a lot for a child or anyone, I think, to manage. So, while I think it would be fun at times and thrilling and, in a way, you can kind of lead a normal life to some extent because you don't have, to worry about going out as one person and being that person throughout, right? You have some privacy in a way when you switch the person to a different persona, but I think it could be exhausting, right, to keep up with being someone that you're not. I think it's just better to, in a way, for me, I think it's just better to be yourself, and everything is going to have consequences in life, right? So, adjusting your lifestyle, adapting, I think is important. But nonetheless, I think it was a great show, and I can understand for some people how that might be a thrilling life to live, right?
Okay. What do you think it would be like?
What do I think it would be like to be her? Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think it would be fun to some extent, right? I think that, you would get to have your privacy when you're Miley Cyrus, right? Or Miley Stewart in the show. And I think it would be a lot of fun to then be on stage and kind of, to kind of be something a little bit different for a while, or have that on-stage persona. So I think it would be fun in a way, but I also think it would be stressful, right? If we watch the show Hannah Montana, there's so many times where she thought she was going to get caught as Hannah when she was Miley, and vice versa. And, she had to work really, really hard to keep that secret. And they make it look easy on the show, right? Because it's the kids' show. But, when you look at how difficult that can be, right? I think it would be challenging. I think it would be stressful. I think it would also be fun, but I think it would be stressful and challenging to some extent.
All right. Do you think they're going to have a reboot of Hannah Montana without Miley Cyrus?
I think it would be a cool idea for Disney to explore. I haven't heard anything about whether Miley would be interested in going back to that role. I know she's worked really hard to shed that Disney image, right, and grow into more adult roles and more of an adult singer, right? That's what we see her today. So they would have to, Disney would have to definitely do some recasting or reboot it with a whole new group of students, maybe, or something like that, or maybe get someone who looks like Miley to play the role, right, as Miley. They'd have to really angle this, differently. I'd like to see a reboot, certainly, but I don't know if Miley would be back for it, but I think it would be a really cool idea if it could be crafted, correctly.
All right, our final question. What Disney store had a rough life and why?
Yeah. I think, again, like going back to whether it's Nickelodeon, Disney, so many child stars, like I said, right, they grow up with the spotlight and they don't really have a lot of freedom or privacy. They're working at a very young age and going to school, so I think all of them really experience their own challenges, right? But I have, I think I would have to say, I know for Miley, right, she really did. Miley Cyrus is somebody who I think has probably had it the hardest, in the sense that she really wanted to, like I mentioned, grow out of that Disney pop princess type image and into a young woman. And I think the way she did it was to a bit of an extreme, as we've seen, in the last few years. I think it could have been handled a little bit differently. Nonetheless, of course, she's won a Grammy and she, has really taken her career to new heights. But, I think she's had it hard when she was working with her dad, right? There's not really, everybody needs a little bit of space, right? We spend a lot of time with our family, and then when you're working with your family, like she did on Hannah Montana, working with her dad. I know her little sister guest starred a few times on the show, things like that. You don't really have a lot of space from the people that you're living with and that you're interacting with. So I think that made the lines a little bit blurred for her. Obviously her family has kind of, had some changes and, new marriages and things like that. And then, she, as we saw, she's been trying to, get out of being typecast as, as Hannah Montana. And I think she's experienced, some challenges with doing that. And we've seen some of the extreme behaviors because of that desire to kind of grow into an adult. And I think slowly she's getting a little bit, she's kind of found her balance. And like I said, she's on a Grammy, she's worked hard for it. But I think, to answer your question, I think she's she's had it a little bit rough, I think, with starting at a young age, working with family and then having to, shed that image a little bit, because she was, I think being typecast a lot as Hannah Montana, or rewarded even, or being recognized only as Hannah. And then Miley started to disappear from the picture. It was when she puts on that blonde wig, she's Hannah, that's who everybody cheers and notices, right? And then it's like, oh, Miley's just the girl playing that role. So I think she had to really, work hard to make people know who is Miley Cyrus, right? So I think she has had it the rough, and it's had it a little more rough because of playing that double role, right? As Miley Stewart, as Hannah Montana, and having to show people that Miley's just as important.
Right. Well, we're gonna take our last commercial break, but when we come back, we'll be closing with it. Believe it or not, I have one more question. Okay, I came up with. What do you
I
think?
don't know who that
Who
is.
do you think has the best Disney singer voice?
Ooh, the best Disney singer voice. That's a great question. There are so many talented singers on that network, right? I would have to say, if I had to really pick one that I really, really liked, though, I really liked Hilary Duff, right? And I think, her singing career, I think, didn't take off much as her acting career. I think that
My
now
podcast.
she's, taking on more,
I'm
acting roles, right?
playing
We don't really
Sheena
see too much
Aftermidnight
music from
podcast.
her.
If you can hear it,
But
hopefully you can hear it.
I really liked her singing. She started at a really young age. I think she was
Anyway.
like around 12, 13 when she started singing on Lizzie McGuire, and then from Disney, she made the Lizzie McGuire movie. She sang on that movie as well. And then we saw her come out with CDs after that. And she sang for a little bit, but I think she has a very sweet voice. And I think, she was very versatile too in her genres. She did a little bit of, punk rock. She did a little bit of pop as well. I think she had really good music videos, stage performance. So I really, liked her musical ability in that way. I think it didn't last, I think, as long as it could have, just because there's so many players in the game, right? There's just so many pop artists coming out at that time, and she just, have to be a little bit more well known for her acting. But I really did like Hilary Duff as a singer as well, in addition to her acting.
Great. All right. Before we end this After Midnight podcast episode, is there anything you would like to tell our audience before we leave?
Yeah, I mean, I really just want to thank Frank for having me on this podcast today. This was my first podcast, so I was really excited to do it. Hopefully we can do more of them, but I'm really thankful to Frank for giving me this opportunity and having me come on his show. As far as, a message I want to leave with the audience, right? I think, if there's one thing we can really take from documentaries like Quiet on Set or from what we've seen lately in the media, right? It's really important to recognize that actors, whether they're children, whether they're adults, are people as well, right? They're people just like you and me, right? They have lives. They, deserve the same amount of respect as we do, right? They may be making more money. They may be living a more glamorous life on the outside, but at the same time, they often have their own struggles, right? And we always have to be very careful about how we're talking about them, being respectful, right? Everybody's entitled to an opinion, but, they deserve support. They deserve respect, and they're just trying to better their careers, better themselves, entertain us. And so I think we often forget about that. We often look at them on screen, and then we forget about who they are as people because we see so much of them as an actor and the roles they're playing. I think if there's just one message I could leave with everybody, it's just to kind of a little PSA here, right? Is to just kind of make sure that we think of actors or entertainers or whoever is in the media, right, as people as well behind the camera, and remember that they have feelings and emotions just like we do.
That's good. Well, people, we'll see you in our next episode here. Have a good after midnight, guys. After out.
Thanks.
All right, welcome, Michelle, if you're still there. Welcome to my podcast. Thank you for viewing in. We're going to do more of my podcast here. We're going to have another episode here. Or not another episode. We're going to have more that you get to listen to of another Sheena podcast. And we're going to keep it going here. Here on this podcast. I will have an episode tomorrow. Make sure you join in. It will be at 8 p.m. Eastern time. As well, if you can. Hopefully it won't be too late for you. But yeah, you'll be invited to 8 p.m. start time. But here is the next episode. Before I get to the next episode, I have to raid this channel because I'm on another platform as well. I'm on Twitch too. So I'm on Twitch and I'm making a debut. This is a debut live of TikTok. So hopefully you can hear me. I don't have a microphone, but hopefully you can hear me. So we are going to have make sure you stay tuned, guys. We have another hour or so. I may cut it off early because I have to leave, but until like 6, I have to leave at 6. So close to 6, we'll cut it off. But I will be back for another episode tomorrow at 8 p.m. as well, just letting you guys know. And we're gonna play another Sheena After Midnight episode because well, this is a Sheena Phenomenal Advice episode. So make sure you join in tomorrow, 8 p.m., people. I'll be on TikTok. I'll be on all these other social media platforms again. Make sure you join. I hope you like my background. I'm on a beach. I'm chillaxing. I'm chillaxing. We all love beaches. Michelle, I miss you. For sure. I'm glad you joined my podcast and listen. Hopefully you're still here. I waved at you. All right. So, and if you guys want to, if you want to hear me sing, you are gonna have to get more viewers. I need at least 10, I think, 10 viewers, to perform a song for you, an after midnight song. So anyway, so cool beans. All right, so I'm about to raid this channel on Twitch, and then we'll resume the Sheena After Midnight episode next, a different episode. Give me a second. And people here on Twitch, we're about to go raid, so let's go raid. And let's see, we're gonna raid. Let's see, I'm gonna try to raid her. I don't know if I'll be able to. We'll see. It won't let me raid. What the heck? All right, it won't let me raid. That's one person. Crap. I hate when that happens. What the heck's going on? Oh, raid. Okay. Give me a second. I'm trying to everybody on Twitch. I honestly don't have a lot of options. I don't understand why I can't raid her. It's stupid. I have one viewer. Oh, I know. Hold on. And you guys know where to follow me on Instagram and all social media at After Midnight Vorse, and Spotify and all that, FJ After Midnight, if you want to listen to my podcast and stuff like that. You're gonna hear her for a minute. Hold on. Oh, they won't let me do it. Okay, I'm gonna have to rate somebody else. So let's see. Let's try this person. They changed settings on here, so I yeah, and now I'm by myself. Oh, she left. Okay, now I'm by myself. Okay, anyway. God, I hate when it does this shit. I can't remember if it'll let me read it or not. I can try. Oh, God.